Right, so welcome to a new guide on this channel, and on this occasion is the KEYSTEP Pro. This is not a review, it's a complete deep dive guide about this device. Everything on this guide is in chapters, so if you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. Now, if you like this, please like and subscribe, and if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can. Just check the links at the description. Okay, so first we need to talk about channels. I'm going to be using USB just to make it simple, and I'm going to use a DAW for now. Now, you can use your MIDI out, the one you have right there at the back, or you can use, if you're using some modular gear, you can use your drum gates, and you can use your voices out, which you're going to be getting gate, velocity, or pitch out. So the main idea of this guide is to learn how to create patterns and how to use the tracks and everything else, not so much in how to connect it to different devices. Now, still, if you want for me to record a video, just connecting this device to different, synths using the drum gates or the voices out, just let me know down in the comments. These are going to be your tracks. You have 4 different tracks. You can use on either track, you can use the sequence mode or you can use it in ARP mode. And this is the same for track 4, 3, and 2. These are the melodic tracks. Now, the track number 1, you can use a sequence just like the other ones, which is going to be the melodic, type of sequence. But on the number 1, you can use a drum. And this is, what you get on this device. You get a drum channel if you want to use a drum channel or use for melodic sequencers. So unless you're using the gates or the MIDI out, the CV and the voices out that you have right there at the back, you're going to need to set up your MIDI channel. Now, by default from factory, they are assigned to a default MIDI channel. Now, the track number 4 is going to be the MIDI channel number 4. Then this one is going to be the number 3, the number 2, and this one is a little bit special. If you're standing on sequence, this is going to be the MIDI channel number 1. But if you change it to a drum, the drum is going to be spitting MIDI out to the channel number 10. So to change or to check all the, the MIDI configuration for the tracks, you have mainly 2 ways. You can do Shift and you need to go to Project. Now, when you're holding Shift and you tap on Project, you're entering into the main menu of the synthesizer, of the controller. So when you do this, it's going to give you a bunch of information, a bunch of options. And right here, we need to go to MIDI channels and we need to press to push to enter to that menu. And right here, it's going to give you the option to set the MIDI channel for the track number 1, the 2, the 3, and so on and so on. And it's going to be the input channel. So if you go down, you have also the output, and separated from this, you have the drum input and then you have the drum output. Now, the main thing that you can do right here is that when you enter, is going to let you change the MIDI channel. For example, right now, and if you want to go back, exit is going to take you back. The track number 1 in the sequence mode, it's spitting information into channel number 1. So if I change it, I can just change it to whatever channel I want. Now, still, it's a little bit annoying going to the utilities. There's an easier way. If you go to the track, you press and hold, it's going to tell you, where is this going? And notice it says global 10. Maybe it's just too small for the camera, but it says global 10. If I go to this one and press and hold, it's going to be global 2. So this means that it's going to the channel number 2. And remember, it's going to be channel number 3, channel number 4 for this one. And if you're using a drum, it's going to be channel number 10. But if you're using the sequence, it's going to be channel number 1. So since now you know how to change the MIDI channels and where each track is sending information, you just need to set it up on your, maybe your synthesizer. If you're using, a synthesizer, in this case, I'm using a DAW, so I'm going to be showing you Bitwig. So on Bitwig, or any DAW, first you need to recognize the device, as a device. And then when it's listening to this device, each track, you need to configure this to listen to that very specific MIDI channel. In the case of my track number 1, I have a drum machine right here, and it's listening to the KEYSTEP Pro, but also listening or taking information from channel number 10 of the KEYSTEP Pro. And if I go to channel 10, which is the drum, and I play something, I'm going to be getting, some drums. And if I go right here to the track number 2, this one is going to be a synth. And if I go here, it's going to be a bass. And this one is going to be some keys. And as I'm getting an ARP, it's because it's standing on ARP mode. I'm going to go back to the sequence. And I get just a simple synthesizer. So once you set up your MIDI channels, then you set them up on the other device. And that's it. Everything should be working as a charm. Now, this device has three different modes of sequencer. Again, you have the melodic, which is the one that says SEQ, which is sequencer, and that's it's called the melodic one, the drum, and the arpeggio. So you have we need to go over three different modes. Now, we first are going to be learning the melodic one, the one that says SEQ, and it's because once we understand that one, all the other ones are just going to be super simple. So every time that you're standing on the track, you can do 16 patterns per track, and each pattern you can hold up to 64 steps. That's why you have the, all the way up to 64. You have 16, 32s, then 48, and then 64. Now still, when you're standing on a track, you're standing on a pattern. So this is going to be the pattern number. Now you can change the pattern, and remember you can do 16 of 64 each. You go up in the arrow, and it's going to go up in the pattern and go down in the pattern number. So let's say that if I'm playing back and let's pretend that I have something going on right here on the pattern number 1, I can easily go to the number 2, and it's going to cue the pattern number 2, the 3, and so on. Now the problem with this is that what happens if I want to cue the 5 and going to the pattern number 10. So we cannot do it with the arrows. We can only go up and only go down. So if you hold the button that says pattern right here, it's going to let you know which pattern you have selected. So by holding it, you can just change patterns with the steps right here. If I wanted to go to the pattern number 16, which is the last, I can go there, and it's going to jump to the pattern number 16, and so on and on. So all the different tracks work the same way. You can just go up with the arrows or down with the arrows, or just hold the pattern and just change it to a different pattern. So on each pattern, these are all your 16 steps, and each step can hold different pieces of information. And this is why you have these knobs right here. When you record something on a step, you can change the pitch, the gate velocity, the time shift, and then the randomness. Also, this is a polyphonic sequencer. So if I record a chord, it's going to remember it. And then if I play it back, it's going to be playing that chord. But also, you can just record a single note. You can do something like that, and it's just going to do it. So when you do this, when you record chords or single notes, you need to double check what you have right here. Notice it says or it says mono, or it says poly. So when you do shift, it's going to let you know the configuration of each sequence or each track. In this case, it's saying that the track number 4 is sitting on poly, so you can record chords, polyphonic, up to 16 different notes in this case. Now, if you change it to mono, and then I go and record a chord on this track, it will not record a chord, right? It's just going to record the lowest note that belongs to that chord. But what you can do if you record something in poly, right, and then you play it back, like we are doing right now, let me just record a chord. It doesn't matter. Right, so I have a chord right here, right? So if I do shift and I change it from poly to mono, it's just going to be playing the lower note because we are mono. But when you record something in poly, it will remember the other notes. When I change it back to poly, still remember the other notes. This doesn't happen if you record in mono. If you do it in mono, it will not remember the other notes. Now, to record sequences, you have 3 different modes. You have the quick record, the step sequence, and the real-time record. Now, first, you're gonna take a look at the quick record because it's pretty simple. Now, sometimes you will have some sequence going on a pattern, something, whatever, it doesn't matter. And maybe you want to start over, right? You want to clear everything and start over. So right here, you get the clear pattern and the clear steps. And these are just a little bit different. So this one will clear the whole pattern you're working with. It's just going to return it back to default. And if you press this one, it's going to clear the steps. And this is very important because maybe you're working on a pattern and you already have your octave set up. You have your scale and, your length, your pattern length and everything else. But you just want to delete the notes. Well, in that case, you will be hitting the control step, the clear steps, and not the clear pattern, because the clear pattern deletes everything. Now going to shift, holding the shift, I can just tap on this one, it's going to delete the pattern, and this one is going to delete the steps. So I'm going to just return the pattern back to nothing, and we have a clear pattern. Now, to record a sequence on quick record mode, it's pretty simple. You just need to press the step right there, just hold it, and then you just need to press whatever you want. In this case, I'm going to be doing this. or maybe, whatever, this, and it's just going to record it just like that. Just press on the steps, then hold it, and then just tap whatever is that you want for this to be played. And if I play it back, it's just gonna go and do it, right? So, super simple. If I wanted to delete the steps and not the pattern, again, shift and clear pattern, and it's just gonna delete everything. Now, you can record chords just like this. Maybe I want to do this. Now, maybe if I want to do a chord, I need to hold the keys in order to do it, for it to remember it. If I do something like that, it's just gonna remember and do it. And just like this, you can just record whatever is that you like in terms of, chords. Right? Super simple. Now, what you can do when you tap on a pattern where you have something on a step, where you have some information, is going to let you know which keys belong or pitches belong to that step. Right? If I go here, it's going to let it know. And I'm pressing and holding, of course. Now, I'm going to be deleting this, and I'm going to do shift and clear steps. So if you repent about doing something, notice that I cleared steps. You have the undo right here. So you can do shift and type the exit, and it's going to bring those chords back. Now, this is a one-time, one thing only. If you start making changes on the sequence, it will not recall, with the previous version. But, just like this, if I clear the whole thing, notice that it's blinking, letting me know that there's something I can, go back to. I'm going to do shift again and do exit, and it will bring me what I've deleted. So that's going to be the quick record. You just press, you record whatever you want when you press and hold, and that is just going to go, right? So super simple. Now, the other way you have to record is going to be the step record. And that one is like the classic, recording, step recording that you get on most sequencers. And it's super simple. So while you're stopped, you just need to arm it and do rec. And it's telling you, dude, I'm waiting for you to enter a note. When I play a note and I press the key and I release it, it's going to advance to the next step. And, and just like this, you create your sequence. Right, so again, super simple. Right. So start again, and when you do step record, you can jump steps. So if I record the 1, the 2, and the 3, I want to jump to the number 7. So I just need to press the number 7, and it will continue the step recording from there. And if I wanted to go back maybe to the number 4, I just can go back there, and it will continue step recording from there. Right? So again, it's just a pretty simple thing. Now, right now, we have something going on right here. What we can do, I can just mute or remove the steps, but this will not remove the information that is inside. It's just going to silence the step. If I turn this on again, it will just not delete the information we just recorded. All right. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to be recording with step recording all the same notes. I'm going to just record the same note over and over again. If I play it back, it's going to just sound like that. Now, what if I wanted to maybe edit or just record something else when we do step recording? Notice that it's going to go to the step number 1, and I want to record maybe 2 notes. And if I want to play an F, it can do it and just play it, and so on and so on and so on. Now, if I go to this step, notice that it's telling me that I have an F and I've lost the C. So whenever you do this, you're not going to be stacking notes. Right? So you're just recording one single note. Now you have a function called overdub. It's going to be this button that you have right here. So when the overdub is on, now what you can do, you can record chords. And now we could also do it with the quick record. If I go to that step and I record a chord, I can just, record it. But again, by using the quick record, by using the overdub, it's going to kind of hold the notes for you. It's going to stack the notes on the previous notes. So if I do something like this on the quick record, I can do something like this, and it's going to stack it. If I do something like this, notice that this one has information, and this one is a little bit lower, in intensity. So this means that we are overdubbing, we're stacking this note on top of this one. And if I just maybe play a different note and going on, just, add just different notes, it's just stacking all the notes. So when I play it, we just get that chord. So it's overdubbing. And this is important because if I do the same thing when I do step recording and I record a low note, right, it's always the same notes. Now, if I do overdub and I position myself right here on the first step and I record an octave higher, it's going to overdub it with this one. It's going to record it, because it's going to stack both notes. And we just get it. So you always need to be aware if the overdub is on or off, depending on, of course, what you want to do. And this is, again, just a nice way, if you're doing step recording or quick record, to create long chords. Because sometimes, if you're holding it with quick record, you cannot, use more than 5 fingers, more than 5 notes. So by doing something like this, you can easily add complex little chords, right? So again, just a very useful thing. So the next thing is going to be the real-time record, right? You have the quick record, which is super simple. The step recording we already covered, and then real-time recording is going to be doing holding the rec and then doing play, and this will start recording. And this will just track whatever is that you play, right? So if I do something like this, it's just gonna record it. Now, if I record the same note over and over again, remember that this by default will delete the previous existing notes and just record whatever is that you're playing, right? Just gonna be replacing the previous notes. Now, if you want to overdub notes, you need to enable this, and then it's gonna record or add or stack whatever it is that you're playing. Right? Again, the overdub is something that you always need to be aware of if this is on or it's off. Alright, so I'm gonna delete that sequence. So we have nothing marking the tempo, right? So we do have a metronome and you have a speaker included with the unit, so you are going to be able to hear it from here. I'm going to disable the overdub for now. If I play it back, we have no metronome. But if I do shift and I go to tap tempo, it's going to enable the metronome. Now maybe you can hear it. It's super low. Now at the back, right here, you have a knob where you can control the volume of the metronome through the speaker. Can go all the way down or all the way up, right? So pretty cool. The metronome is going out from here. Now you do have some options with the metronome. You need to go to shift and then utility, and then it's just, again, gonna give you a bunch of options. Right here, you go to the metronome and you can change the output if you want it for it to go from the speakers or the line out that you have right here on the metronome, right? So super cool. You have the level and the output. If I go back, you have the count in. So if you want to, for the metronome to count in before it starts recording, you can enable it from here. So right now I have 1 bar. So maybe you can change it to 2 bars or just turn it off. In this case, I'm just gonna keep it to 1 bar. Also, another thing that you get is the time division. This will change the time division of the metronome. If I change it from here, notice it's gonna be a little bit different. Right, so you can do that. It's just a pretty complete, device. Now you also have the time division right here, and this is going to be for the sequence. Now I'm going to be recording something dumb, doesn't matter. I'm going to be doing something like this. And if I play it back, I'm going to disable the recording, just going to play it back. Now, the time division, it's also for the sequencer, but also for the metronome. If I do shift and go to the time division, I'm going to be affecting, the time division of the sequence. Notice it's going a lot slower now, right? If I go to change it to, 132s, it's going to be a lot faster, and so on and so on. So this is something that will affect whenever we record and whenever we do something to the sequence. But it also can affect the metronome. If I press and hold the metronome, now this is going to show me what I'm using for the time division of the metronome. So I can change it from here, right? So tap tempo, I affect the time division of the metronome, and then shift, I affect the time division of the sequence. And I'm going to leave it on 1/16 for now. So you can live record a quantized version or not quantized version. If you do shift and you go to rec, it's going to change the quantization mode. If it's on, it's going to fit whatever it is that you play to each step. There's nothing in between, no offsets. But if I turn it off, it's not going to quantize whatever I just live record. I'm going to go back to the metronome and just make it 2 bars for the count in, just to make it a little bit more obvious. So it's going to count in for 2 bars before it starts recording. So if I do rec and then play, it's going to count 2 bars and then start recording. This is something super useful, so you can, just be prepared before you start recording. And again, just like I said before, the overdub is something that we need to really be aware of when we record something. And the quantization, again, if I turn it on or off, it's super important. It's something that you need to double check before you, you start recording. And the time division we talked about earlier, it's super important because if I do shift and hold it, it's standing on 1/16. So when we record something, it's going to be recording. I'm going to do it again. It's going to be recording in 16 notes, right? Let me just do it again. Right? Just going to be 16 notes. Now the thing is that if you want to record 16 notes and your time division is 1/8, you're not going to be able to do so, right? It's not going to work like that. I'm going to go to 1/4 and I'm just going to start recording. It's just not going to record it. It's going to be a lot slower, so it will just not do it. So again, another thing that you need to be aware of is going to be your quantization, your overdubbing, and your time division. I'm going to delete this and I'm going to do live record again. So one cool thing that you can do when you're looping is that you can delete steps in real time. So for now, I'm going to be doing something simple, so we can have information on all the different steps. So right here, you have your tie and the rest, and we are recording. So when I do this, when I press it, it's going to pretty much delete the different steps that we have right there, right? It's going to only work when you press it down. If I press down, it's just going to delete pretty much everything. Now we will talk a little bit more about the ties and rests on the edit sequences section. Right, so those are the main ways you have to record your sequences. Now you have a million other functions that you can use when you create a sequence. Now I'm going to be entering step recording and I'm going to be just recording something very simple. And I'm going to be doing it to pretty much all steps. Now I'm going to be doing some playing, and for now I'm just going to disable the tempo, the metronome. And we get something like this. Now what we can do, we can transpose. And this is a momentary transpose, right? So I'm going to be enabling this button, which is the transpose, and now this is on. If I play a different key, it will not do anything. And notice that this lets us, without the transpose, it's going to let us play on whatever sequence that it's going if you have polyphony available, right? Now when the transpose is enabled and I play a different key, it will not transpose the sequence. Now what I need to do, I need to press and hold, and maybe I can then transpose it. And it will just transpose it. It's just super cool. Right. Now whenever I release it, notice that right here it's telling you, dude, you transposed it to this key. If I release it, it's going to remember it. Now, but it only lives when the transpose is on. If I turn this off, it's going to go back to the original pitch, right? It's a super cool thing because now you can just toggle between the original version and the transpose one when you enable this button. Right? Super cool. Now, if you want to delete whatever is that you are storing on the transpose, you need to do shift, hold it, and then I just kind of bumped the camera, but just press the transpose and it's going to clear whatever is on the transpose. And if I turn it on, now we have nothing. And we need to do it all over again. Is staying on the same route. Maybe I'm going to go low. Right, it's a pretty cool feature. Right, so I'm going to delete everything and I'm going to stand on step recording and I'm going to be recording a C note. Just going to do all that. There we go. And we have a single note, right? Super simple. Now I'm going to be going to whatever we have right here, right on this one. And this one, I guess, is a bass. And on this one, I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to be recording a C. So I'm going to go there and just do step recording and record 16s of the same. Now this one is playing a C, this one is playing a C. If I go to this one and I do transpose, for now I'm just going to turn off the rec. I can hold the transpose and I know that I can just change it to something else. But notice that this track is not transposing. So what you can do, you can transpose and add them to a global group. And whenever you transpose it, everything is going to be transposed. Now I'm going to clear the transpose for now, and I'm going to hold the transpose, and it's just blinking. Now, if I want to transpose two tracks, at the same time together, I need to tap this one and tap this one. And now they are white, so they belong to the same group. And if I play it, and I do the same trick, it's going to transpose both tracks together. Right, super cool. If you want to remove them from a group, you just hold the transpose and you just need to tap the tracks that you want to remove from the group. So when we enter nodes in the quick edit step, for example, if I add a node right here, it's going to add the default values to whatever it is that you're doing. And the pitch is going to be whatever pitch you played. The gate is going to be the default, the velocity is going to be default, and everything else. But while you're holding, you can change whatever it is that you enter as pitch, and it will let you know, the note where you're changing it, because from here it's just not very, visual. So right here is just changing and telling me which note I'm selecting, which pitch I'm selecting. Now the gate is going to, and I'm going to hold it like that, the gate is going to make this step a lot longer. So if I go up on the step and I play it back, it's going to be a super long, right? It's just making it wider. But whenever you do extending on that, whenever you do quick record, you just can modify this values per step, right? You can just adjust whatever it is that you want to do. And, just can go crazy and just do something weird. Right, now we're going to talk about this encoders a little bit more in the future. Now, still, if you're standing on a key and you tap whatever on a step and you tap the encoders, right there, it will tell you whatever values that step holds. Right, now I'm going to be recording something simple. If I play back, we're just gonna get some dumb sequence. Now, if I standing on the play and I play it back, notice that it's pausing. And it's pausing on step number 16. Whenever I play it back, it's gonna resume the playback. And if you want to stop it, of course, it will always take the sequence, the playback, back to the beginning. But if you want to pause it and then just resume, you can do it with the play. Now, another thing that you can do is you can do shift and tap the play. And this will restart the sequence and making it go to the beginning when you tap the play. Right, so starting over with the pattern, now we have this option, which is going to be the hold. We're going to be using this a lot. And this is as important as the overdub and pretty much shift and everything else. This is a function that we get that it's going to make our life a little bit easier. Now, if I enable it, what it does, it's just going to hold whatever note is that we play. And whenever we turn it off, it's just going to forget whatever is that we did, right? Just not going to play it. But it's just, holding the notes for us. Now, this is super useful when we want to maybe do step recording and we need to enter a lot of keys and we don't have enough hands. Or even when we do quick record, you're just using one hand right here and you need to enter the notes with the other hand. So maybe when you hold it, you can do so by, do something like that. Is going to hold it, right? And it's just able to do it for you without overdubbing, right? Super simple. Now, another thing that the hold can do is that you can maybe hold it if you're recording arpeggios. This is something, very useful. But also you can use it when you're doing step record. I'm gonna enable step record, and we know that when we step record, we just press key, and when we release it, it's just gonna move on to the next step, right? And so on and so on. But in this case, I just don't want to do this. I want to record chords in step recording. Now, when you do hold, it's gonna hold the notes for you. So how will the step recording know when we need to advance to the next step? So I'm holding it, right? So if I play it, it's going to hold it and it's not advanced to the next step. So what you can do, you can just manually go to the next step or, just go back. Now, what you can do as well, you can go to the tie and the rest, and this will make it advanced to the next step. Now, the thing is that when you're doing this, is going to take the gate of whatever it is that you enter right here. It's just going to make it longer. So if I do tie rest for about, 4 different steps, and then just, stop the holding, and I stop playback, and I play it back, notice that this step is super long. So the time the rest will move you to the next step, but also make the gate, the length of the notes really, really long. So for example, something that we could do, I'm gonna just delete the pattern. I'm gonna be entering step recording, and I'm gonna hold it, right? And I'm gonna be recording whatever chord, and I want to make it 4 steps long. So while this hold is on, I'm gonna be doing 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then on the 5, maybe I want to do something else. I'm gonna unhold it, just do it again, and I'm gonna be recording a different chord. And we do the same thing again. I'm gonna stand on the 9 again, gonna disable it again. And it's just gonna be recording something else right here. And now when we just, play it back, what we are doing is just pretty much making the length of this one's super long, and this one's just one single step. Now we can change all of this by holding this step and changing the gate. We're gonna talk about this later, but we can do it from here. Right, but this is a nice, quick, fast method that we get to make the gate longer. So I'm going to be recording something simple on the track number 4 and then the track number 2. I'm going to do it maybe without you having, without you on the screen. Alright, so I have something on the number 4 and the number 3. So if I play it back, we have a arpeggio on the 4 and then the bass on the number 2. It's just pretty simple. Now, you do have a mute button right here, and this is pretty obvious. The note indicates when a note is being played, but if you press mute, it's going to mute that track. Same for the other ones, right? Again, just pretty simple, I know. But the thing is that what if you want to solo something, right? And not just mute it. And this works for, all the tracks. So what you can do, you can go to the shift, and while you're holding shift, you're going to be tapping the mute. Now notice that this one goes blue. So this means that now this is the soloed track and everything else is going to be muted. And just to disable, to go back to normal mode, is to just do shift and then mute. Now another thing that you get is the octave, and I know that all of this is just pretty simple. If I just play it back, I can maybe go right here and change the octave of the track number 4. You can go up, or you can just go down in the octave. Now the cool thing that you need to know about this is that each track remembers on which octave you are standing. If I go all the way up on the track number 4, I can go to the track number 3, and it's going to be right in the center. So all tracks remember the octave you're standing right here. So maybe this one is going to go all the way down, and if I change them, the lights are just letting me know what we have. Now if you want to go back to the original octave, just tapping both at the same time is going to just, send it back to the beginning. Right. So these are some functions that we have available. Now we can do a lot more things. This thing is just packed with features. Now, the way I plan these videos is like if you're watching a course. So I just plan everything beforehand so we can just learn the basics and then just keep moving to the next section and learn some more and some more and some more until we just learned the whole device. This is why I'm just showing you some useful functions because we are going to be using them on the next sections. Okay, so let's talk about the sequence length. So you have 64 steps divided in 4 different pages, and this is the section where we change or we manage the sequence length. I'm going to be recording something. I have the bass that we recorded on the previous section going on, and I'm going to be recording something on the first 16. So I'm going to do something simple, nothing super crazy. All right, so that's fine. Right, so we have that. That's pretty cool. Now, the whole action is going to happen right here. So everything is going to be about the last step. So when I hold the last step, it's going to show me where the last step is. And since we have a 16-step sequence only, it's showing the first page, and the last step is going to be the 16, right? And this is what the last step is going to do. It's going to decide the length of your sequence. If you want to extend your sequence, you need to hold the last step, and then by tapping the other pages, it's gonna, just make the sequence longer. Now notice when I'm holding the last step, this one goes white. So the white means where the last step lives, and it's the 64th step on the last page. Now when you do this, you extend the sequence, but you're not copy pasting. If I do play whatever we had. So right now we have this first 16s. And notice that it's going to the second page, third page, and we have nothing. And it's because it's not copying this first 16s and then pasting it on all the other pages. Right? Notice that again, that we have a dim light and a kind of a more bright light. So this is where the sequence is. This is right here in this page, and then this page, and then so on and so on and so on. So by default, the white one is going to be where you're standing. So right now we are standing on the page 16, so we are watching the first 16 steps. If I want to go to a different page so I can edit the steps, just by tapping this, the white light, the white one is going to show you where you're standing. And then, just can go to the next ones and add some information, right? Same thing for the 64s, maybe I want to add something right there. And now we have information on pretty much all the different pages. Right? So this is how it works. You just set your last step, and then you go through the pages and you do whatever is that you need to do. Okay, so I'm going to be deleting the sequence and I'm going to be recording something new. Something new, simple, it doesn't matter, right? So we have only 16 steps and we have one single page. What if you want to copy this page? So right here you have your copy and then right there you have your paste. So I want to copy whatever we have on this page and just paste it on a different page. And I could paste it on whatever we want. So what you need to do is to go to copy, just hold it and then tap the page, and right there is going to tell you page was copied. Now again, do it again. I'm going to copy that page. Is page copied. So now what we need to do is just the same. I'm going to need to go to paste, hold it, and then tap it on this, on this, on this, wherever you want to paste it, and it's going to paste whatever page. Now if I go here, notice that it's just not letting me, and it's because the last step is on the 16. Now if I enable the 32s and I go to the 32s, notice that we have the data because we copied and pasted, right? So by doing this, we could just go maybe record something. Gonna be recording. Alright, so I have something just on the first page. So I want to extend the sequence and I'm going to go to 64s. But now we know that when we do this, the 32, 48, and 64s are just going to be empty. So we can just do the copy pasting. I'm going to hold the copy the first one, and then go to the paste and paste on the 32nd, 48s, and then 64s. Now we are just, copy pasting the first 16s to the other pages. Now, you can do whatever you want right here. Maybe you have a full sequence and you have different steps on all the different pages. Well, again, the copy paste will maybe let you copy this first 16, then just paste it on the 64s and not the 32s and 48s. Now, still, there's a much easier way of doing this. I'm gonna be doing recording something simple. Now, we only have 16 steps. We want to extend the sequence and we don't want to do this copy pasting, right? So you can hold the shift and then by tapping the 32s in this case, it's just going to copy whatever we have in the 16 and just paste it on the 30 seconds or the 32s. Same thing if we go here, it's going to copy whatever we had from before and extend it to 48. And again, we just don't need to do copy pasting here. It's just going to take whatever we had from before and just paste it on the next. Right, so remember, everything is about the last step. So if I go to the last step and stand on the first 16 and I'm going to be saying that this is the last step, notice that everything goes off. So now we only have a 16-step sequence. Now this doesn't mean that you're just deleting the contents of whatever you had on the other steps. If you go to the last step and enable the 64s, we are just getting everything back. It's just a way of enabling and disabling. You're not deleting. Still, if you want to delete a page, you can. So if we wanted to erase the contents of a page, I can go to erase, hold it, and it's just going to go and delete it. I'm going to be deleting the 48s and the 32s as well. Now notice that they are still on, but if I play it, we only get the 16s and everything else is just going to be, empty. It's just deleting the steps or the contents of the page. right? And if you want to remove them from the equation, again, you just need to go and make the last step 16 in this case, and that fixes the problem, right? Now, the same thing works for the 16 steps, the first page. If I do last step, the last step is going to be the 16, but maybe I don't want to do this. I want to make it an 8-step sequence. When I do so, it's just going to be playing the first 8. All the other ones are on, but we don't lose the information. Remember that when we do this, we don't lose it, right? But still, you can just make your last step 8 and then just remove or just, in this case, disable it. And you're just going to be getting an 8-step sequence, right? So, okay, I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to be deleting everything. We have no information on the 16 steps, and I'm going to be recording just maybe, I don't know, 4 steps. We just have 4. Now, what happens if I want to extend the sequence? I want to copy and then paste it. I'm going to be making the last step, maybe the number 4, and we just have a 4-step sequence. Pretty simple. So what happens when I do shift and I do 16? It's going to copy this ones and just extend it and take it to the 32s? Well, something like that. I'm going to be doing shift and I'm going to be tapping the 16. Notice what happens. It's going to copy the 4 that we have right here, paste it and paste it and paste it until we complete the 16s. Now, one more thing before we move on to the next one. Right here, it says follow. So if I play it back and I keep extending, and I'm going to make it 64. I'm just going to make it 64. It's 64 steps of the same dull thing. So right here it says follow. Now the thing is the sequence it's playing back, and it's showing us right here where the playback head is, right? Just going to 64s and then going back. Now when we have this white, it shows us the page where we are standing, right? So the follow, what it will do, it will just make it follow whenever we are just playing. And we do this by doing shift, and I'm holding the shift right now, and I'm gonna play and I'm gonna tap the last step. Now when we do so, this one is gonna light up, and it's gonna take us automatically when we are just playing it back to whatever page. If I tap this page, it's going to get out of that mode, and we're just standing on the first 16, on the first page. So this is called sequence follow, and it depends on what you want to do. You want it to enable or not. If you want to see your whole progression and go to the next and to the next and the next, it's just gonna do the trick. But maybe you want to stand on the 32s right here, and you want to edit whatever you have on the 32s. Well, then you just tap it, and you are standing on that page, and you can just modify whatever you have, and it's just gonna just do it. All right, cool. Okay, so what if we want to copy, paste, or erase some steps? So I'm going to be adding some steps right here. I'm going to be just maybe adding 3 steps right here, right? So we only have 3 steps. Right, so I want to copy these steps and just maybe manually paste them right here. So by going to the global copy, I'm going to hold it, and you need to tap whatever is that you have right here, and it's going to turn blue. So this means that you're copying those steps. Now I can just deselect and just copy the 1 and the 3. Once you release it, all of this is just going to be on the short local memory, right? The temporal memory. And now I need to hold paste, and then maybe I'm going to be pasting it on the number 9, and it's just going to be pasting whatever steps we just copied, right? So super simple, right? If I wanted to copy them again, I'm going to hold copy, and I'm going to be again selecting this, and this. And then I'm going to go to paste and just paste them right there. Right. Simple enough. I'm going to be just deleting everything. And one thing that you need to remember is that when you copy and then you paste, all these 3 steps, for example, they hold some information, which pitch you're playing. If you have keys or you have chords, the gates, the velocity, every step holds this information. So when you copy and then, you copy and paste, you're just going to be copy pasting with everything included. You're just not copying the pitch, right? So this is something that you need to be aware of. Now, when you record something, I'm going to be recording it. something like that, it doesn't matter. And if I play it back, remember that we can go to the step and just disable it. Now what we are doing, we are just not deleting the information inside that step, right? We are just disabling it. What if you want to delete it? So here below the paste, you have the erase. By holding this and going to whatever step that you want to delete, you do that and it's kaboom, it's gone. And I'm going to be doing this for pretty much all, so we can just prove that we have nothing right there. Now, if I enable them back, enable the steps back, it's just going to be playing the root, which is going to be this C, right? So it's indeed actually deleting whatever information we had on that step. All right, so I'm going to delete the pattern and I'm going to be recording something else. And I'm going to be doing something like this so we can easily hear what we are doing. I'm going to be playing this back, right? So when we disable the steps, what we are doing, we're not really deleting, we are adding rests, right? You're just making the step not playing back, not play back. So this is what we do. We are not really deleting the information, right? So when we enable them, they just, let's go back. Now, if you right here on the page below the paste, you have the erase. If you hold it, you can't delete whatever information you had on those steps. If I enable them back, it's not right. So we just have a single tone, which is going to be this key. So we are really erasing the steps. Okay, so now we need to talk about the drum sequence. We already know how the sequence, the melodic one, works, so the drum is going to be super simple to understand. Now, the drum sequence can hold up to 24 tracks. That's why when you go to the drum, you select the drum, you have 24 keys right here with lights on, and it's because you can, again, just trigger 24 drum instruments or 24 tracks, let's say. Now, if you're using the gates, just the drum gates right here at the back, you only have 8 gates out, so you can only use 8. So how you record this is pretty much the same way than the sequence. Now the thing is that, again, the kick is going to be its own sequence, the snare is going to be its own sequence, and then so on and so on and so on. So if you want to do some recording, it's just the usual way. I'm going to be going to recording something live. It's just going to record it, right? Super simple. Now, what if you want to do grid recording? Well, or quick editing, or quick edit, or quick recording. So you can maybe stay on the kick, and now you're standing on the 16 of the kick. So I'm going to be just doing a 4 in the floor, you know, just by doing this. If I wanted to go to the snare, I can go to the snare and just add them manually right here. I don't know what this is. So we have some hi-hats. We just can go manually add them right there. Right? So again, it works pretty much the same than the sequence, the melodic sequence. Now, still, there are some things that you cannot do, like, for example, modifying the pitch, right? So if you have a kick, you cannot maybe do a quick edit or stand on that one and just change the pitch. Notice that the pitch is completely off when we are working on the drums. Now, what you get is everything else. You can modify everything else. So if I go to the hats and I just add them manually, I'm going to do something like that and just, you know, play it. The velocity for the hats is pretty much the same, but maybe I just want to go to this one and go down in velocity and go down in velocity in that one, and so on and so on. But we cannot alter the pitch. We can even do gate, time shift, and randomness. Now, the time shift is a very special feature. We're going to talk about this in a minute. So sometimes when you want to do quick editing, and for now, I'm just going to disable the metronome. So we just have a kick, snare, and some hats. And we are just doing some playback. So maybe I want to stand on the snare just to add, you know, a variation, to do something. It will require for me to play the snare, but this is going to play the sound, right? What if we are standing on the hi-hat track and I want to go to the snare silently? So what you can do, you can just hold the track 1 button and then just select the snare, and it's going to take you there without playing that sound. So you just can, you know, do some changes. And this is a good, you know, performance tool, you know, performance utility. It just can be playing live and you don't have to trigger the sounds. You just can go to whatever it is that you want to do and just make the changes. Right. Now, since you have 24 sounds that you can just play, and in this case is connected to my DAW, and you can do it through MIDI, the MIDI configuration or where you're going to be outputting MIDI data on each drum sound is kind of important. So you can go to the configuration and just configure each different sound or just change the drum map. This is, again, something really cool. I need to do Shift and then go to Project. And again, just going to give you some options right here. And if I keep scrolling down, it's going to give us a lot of options. I'm not going to be discussing all the configuration options because it's just going to be really long. But right here, you have your drum map. If you go right there, it's going to give you a mode and a configuration. So I'm going to go to config in this case, and it's going to give you two options. So when you go to chromatic, it's going to let you select what's the lowest note. Now, if I go to the other one is a little bit more complicated. It's called custom. And on this one, it's going to let you edit pretty much all the different notes. So maybe the note number 1 is going to be outputted where, and so on and so on and so on. So you just can customize all of this to your liking. Okay, so if I play it back again, we have something. Now remember that we have the mute function right here. If I do mute, it's going to mute the whole kit. And I know this all makes sense. Now, the thing is that you have two main ways of doing mutes. You have the quick mute and you have the drum mute. If I just play it back, I'm going to go to the mute and I'm going to press and hold it. If I release it, it's just going to mute the whole thing. In this case, I'm just going to press and hold. And when we do so, I just can tap a drum key, an instrument. And it's just going to show that that one is red. So we are just muting all the different tracks. And this is what we do with this. We just hold it. It's going to mute them. Now, the thing that you need to know about this is that it's going to mute pretty much the whole project. If I go, and we're going to talk about projects later, but if I go to the next pattern, notice that the kick and the snare, which is these two instruments, they stay muted. If you want to remove the mute, you just can, again, press and hold and just remove the mute that fashion, right? Still, if you want to unmute them all, what you can do is to go to Shift and go to the drum button. And if you do drum, it's just gonna go back to having no mutes. Now I'm gonna be playing it back. And the other method is going to be called drum mute mode. Now I'm gonna be going to mute and I'm gonna be pressing the drum. Right? Now they are both blinking. Now what we can do with this one is that I can do something like this and just mute the tracks. Right? The whole point of this is that you don't have to hold the mute and just, do it that fashion. If I go to the next pattern, they stay muted. So that's how it works. But the main idea is that you don't have to, and by tapping both at the same time, you could just get out of this. You don't have to press and hold in order to mute them all, because maybe you're just performing live and you just, you need your free hands, your hands free, sorry. Okay, so we know how the melodic sequence works, how the drum sequence works, and we just need to talk about the ARP. And again, everything is just really simple when you understand at least one of them. In this case was the melodic sequence. So let's talk about the ARP. I'm going to be standing on this track and I'm not going to be using the sequencer or the melodic sequence. I'm going to be standing on the ARP. So now whatever you do, whatever you press is going to be ARPed, right? Just going to be, just doing an arpeggio of whatever it is that you play. If you play a chord, just going to go and do it, and so on and so on and so on. So it's very simple, but we have a lot of added functions to this. Now, what if I press hold? It will just, do the chord for me? Yeah, it's going to do it. I'm going to go to hold, and I'm going to be holding that key, and going to the next one, and going to the next one. But this doesn't work just like when we record steps. You need to do it legato mode. So if I maybe hold this, I'm going to be pressing a new key, press it, it's going to do it, and then, and only then, I can release the previous one. And the same thing, and it's just going to keep all the notes that you do. So you do this legato mode. That's, how it's called. And if you do that, it's going to work. Now, as soon as you press one single key, it's going to erase the whole thing and just do one single note, right? So you need to be just aware of this. Now, notice that when I play stop, when I press stop, it's going to stop it. But if I do play it back again, just gonna do it again. If I stop it, it's just gonna stop the ARP. As soon as I play it back, it's just gonna play it back. Now again, I'm gonna be doing the ARP just like we did before, and I'm gonna release it. We are holding. If I do stop, it's gonna stop the playback, but when I do play, it advances the sequence, but it still remembers everything that we are doing. And if I pause it, still it's gonna be playing the ARP, but because we are not recording the sequence. Now if I make a new chord, something like that, what you need to remember is that the time division will affect the ARP. So this is going to be the time division, right? And we already talked about this. I'm going to be playing the shift or holding the shift. So notice that the lights go on. It's because I'm holding the shift. If I change the time division, it will affect the ARP. And then again, this works just like the sequence mode or the melodic sequence. Everything we do on the time division, it affects everything pretty much, the whole playback. Okay, so I'm gonna be playing a chord just to try it. Doesn't matter. We are just doing this ARP, right? Now we have the hold on. Now what we can do, just like we did with the sequence, we can transpose this. I'm gonna be going to the transpose button. I'm gonna be playing this, and notice that we have it right here. And while we're holding this, we just can transpose it. If I play a different key without holding, it's just gonna be just doing that key. Now remember how this works, right? And we already talked about this. It works the same way that it works with the sequence. We need to hold it in order to transpose it. And if we want to erase the transposing, we just do shift and then transpose. Now if I do transpose, hold it, and just transpose it to something else, we can just toggle this on to go back to whatever we had before and switch between the transposed arpeggio. Alright? Super cool. Now I'm gonna be going to one single key, right? And we have the hold on. So if I release it, it's just gonna do it. Now what we can do, we can go to different octaves and just record it. Now if I do something like that, it's just gonna be playing this, alright? So I'm gonna be standing here, I'm gonna press and hold it. Now the fact that I go to a different octave and play a different key without releasing this one, it's just gonna, play this one because it's in a lower octave, and this one was on a higher octave, this one. If I remove this one, I can maybe go right here at the top and just do the same. And now we are just, playing or using the whole range of the keyboard. So I'm going to be playing an ARP, I'm holding, right? So I'm holding. Everything that we have right here plays a part on the arpeggio. So we have the gate. What if we want to modify the gate? Well, if I make it shorter, it's just going to be super short. If I make it super large, it's just going to be wide open. Now then we have the velocity. We can affect the velocity. Just like that. If I go all the way up, it's going to affect the velocity, right? So again, it's just pretty understandable. Now then we have the time shift and the randomness. Now this, again, we're going to talk about this much later. The time shift is going to offset the, the arpeggio. Now in this case, we have a no beat. So I'm going to be maybe recording a 4 in the floor or something like that. So we can have something we can, hear. Now if I go to the time shift and I move it, notice that it's offsetting the whole arpeggio before 50%. If I go to the other way, it's just gonna offset it to the other side. But this is what the time shift will do. We are gonna again talk about this a little bit later, to talk more about this. Now when you move the time shift, sometimes it's just a little bit hard knowing where you are. Every time you move one of these encoders, it's gonna tell you right here what the value is. And the randomness is just gonna be random notes. Pretty simple. That is a lot of random notes. Alright, so something happened, I had to restart the DAW. So if I do something like this, it's just gonna get, and again, just play the ARP, I'm gonna hold it. Now when we go to shift, right here we have the ARP patterns, which are gonna be, the directions. So if I stop it again and I go, and I think it's a little bit dimmer right now, I don't know what happened, but that's fine. I'm gonna be unholding it, and again, I'm gonna be playing this. So if I go to shift, you need to select one of the patterns. So the default one is going to be order. This means that when you play a key, the ARP, it's just going to be repeating whatever is that you playing on the very specific order of where you're playing it. So if we have something else, for example, I'm going to be latching it, I'm going to be doing a chord. I'm going to go to shift, I'm going to go to up. So up is going to be up. It's going to start here and then go up. Now down is going to be the same but down, right? It's going to go up and then start up and then go down. Now the other ones are just, very simple, but they have weird names. So the next one is going to be exclude. So this one is up and down, right? Super simple. Now the include, which is include, I guess, is going to be up and down, but it repeats the first and the last, key twice. That's pretty much it. So then if I go to shift and I go to rend, it's going to be random. And then poly, which is the last one, is going to repeat the whole chord. So these are your different ARP patterns that you have available. Now the other thing is going to be the ARP octaves. So right here it's going to say ARP octave, and you can go down by -1 or you can go up by 3 octaves. Now this is a very simple feature that you get on pretty much all arpeggiators. So I'm going to be doing something like this. I'm going to be holding this. I'm going to go to shift, and now I'm going to be changing the octave. Now I'm going to go to up, right, first. So while holding shift, I can go to 1, and what it does is just going to repeat the arpeggio that you're doing on your octave where you're played, and then just repeat it 1 octave up. That's pretty much it. Then I can go to 2 up, and it's just going to do 2 up. And if I go to 3, it's going to repeat the same pattern on 3 different octaves by going up. Now, you can do -1, and it's going to be the octave plus the one octave lower. And again, all of this is just pretty, is a very common function that you get on an arpeggiator. Now, all of this will respond to scales. If I go here, maybe select the different scales, it's going to fit whatever it is that we played to the different scales. And if you're wondering, dude, can you show us how the scales work? Well, this is the topic of the next section. Alright, so how can you record an ARP? Well, it's just pretty simple. The thing is that it's just a little bit weird. I'm going to be doing the ARP, right? And we are just recording this. Now, if I do record and play, it's just going to start recording this. Now, if I stay on the ARP, we are not going to be able to do anything. If I play it and maybe unhold it, notice that nothing gets played. And it's because whatever we do right here is going to be recorded to the sequence. So when we record an ARP, then we need to go to the sequence, and we have the sequence there. All right, so again, this is how, the sequencer works, and the arpeggiator works. So now, you know what? Let's talk about scales, because it's a very important and super cool feature that you get on this device. Right, so now it's time to talk about the scales, and it's a great and very simple feature to use. So if you take a look at right here on this section, you can see the scale, and you have a lot, the most common scales: chromatic minor, the Dorian, mixolydian, harmonic minor, blues, and then you can select your root, and you have 2 dedicated or 2 user scales, which means that you can create your own scales. So how this works is that you can record something, and whatever it is that you record will be shifted or offsetted to fit whatever scale that you select. Now, this works by holding the shift. I'm going to be holding the shift right here. Notice you don't see it on the screen, but I'm holding it. So when you hold shift, it's going to tell you which scale that you have selected. In this case, we have the chromatic. So by playing this key is going to be using the major scale, minor scale, Dorian, mixolydian, and so on and so on. So if I record something, I'm going to be doing step recording, and I'm going to be recording something simple like that. Right, I'm going to be playing this back. Right, what happens if we want to change the scale? So I'm going to be holding the shift. I am holding it right now, and we are standing on the chromatic. So we are doing minor, I'm going to go to major. So whatever you were playing is going to offset the notes to fit to a major scale. And if I keep going, it was already minor, so we can go to Dorian, which is pretty much the same thing. But then we go to mixolydian, harmonic minor, and then blues. Now, for scale, selecting, the root is just, something highly important. So this key right here, it gives you the root. You can select the root of a scale. So I'm going to go to major, right? It's going to be selecting the major scale. Now, I want to select the root. So when you do shift, you do have the root right here. And this is not a scale. So when you, to change the root, you need to hold the shift. Then you need to go to the root key, press and hold it, but then still holding the shift right here. Now, what this does is going to let you select the root. Now, notice that the lights go off and only the lights that you have right here is the ones that you have selected. I'm going to release the shift. I'm going to release it, but I'm keep holding the root. And this is because this is going to let you select the root on this octave. So by default, it's going to be a C, right? The root is going to be C. But if I change it to something else, I'm going to be playing this. I can change it to C sharp, D sharp, or maybe F, or whatever it is that you want to do. So this is how you select your root. I'm gonna maybe leave it on a D. Now when you release this key, it's gonna go back to normal. And right now you can change the different scales, but the root, it will always be a D in this case, right? Again, if I do the same thing, hold the shift, go to root, hold it, release the shift, it remembers all of this. Now, all of this is by pattern. If I go to the maybe this pattern and I go to the scales, notice it's chromatic. So all of this is being remembered per track on each pattern. So how can you set up your user scale? So, okay, so we have this, thing going on. We already know it. So what I want to do, I want to change it to a Persian scale, right? Something like that, something that we don't have right here. So I'm gonna go to shift and I'm gonna be standing on the user scale, right? So we are standing on the user scale now. Now notice that when we go to the user scale and we select it, all the lights right here, they go on, right? So the thing is that this works just like selecting the root. I'm gonna be going to the user, I'm gonna still holding shift, I'm gonna press the user 1 and hold the user 1 scale. I'm gonna release the shift. Now all these lights within 1 octave are gonna be on. So the trick right here is that to set up your user scale, you need to remove the notes that don't belong to that scale. And I want to do a Persian scale on C. So if I go right here, I need to remove the notes that don't belong. C belongs, this one belongs, the D doesn't belong. So when I select it, it's going to remove it from the scale. D sharp, it's not. E, F is gonna, it's gonna be within the Persian scale. F sharp is gonna be working. Then G, no, A, no, and this one is gonna be nope. So all the notes within the C Persian are gonna be, enabled. So I'm going to be releasing this. And always, again, the root makes sense. So I'm going to be selecting the root. So when I play this, it's just going to be playing whatever notes that we have right here within the boundaries of that, the user scale. And you have 2 of this. So you can go and set up your first user scale, or then maybe go to your second user scale and just create or set up a completely different user scale. It's a fantastic feature. So you have that feature on the KEYSTEP 37, the smaller version, but you have only 1 user scale. Right, so you have something called the Chord Mode. Now, on the KEYSTEP 37, you have, your knob and you can select different chords. This is nothing like that. It's just much more powerful on the KEYSTEP 37. On this one, what you can do, you can record the chord and then that chord is going to be transposed and it will listen to whatever scale that you have right here. And, so the trick is that you commit a chord to memory, right? So I'm going to be maybe going right here. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be holding the shift. And right here, you have the tie and the rest, but below it says chord in blue right there at the bottom. So you need to do shift, you need to do tie, rest, and chord in this case, and I'm going to keep pressing the tie, rest, and chord, right? I'm pressing both. I'm going to release the shift. Now I'm going to go and just make a chord. I'm in a funny position. I'm going to be doing this, right? So I'm just pressing and holding. You can do it on kind of a legato mode. Now, I'm going to be releasing this, and notice that this one is flashing. So this means that this recorded what was stored committed to the memory. So now when I play a key, it's just going to be playing that chord, and it's transposing it. Now, all of this is just it's just being aware of the user scale. If you go to chromatic, is going to do chromatically, but if I go to major and minor, right? So it listens to, well, Lorient is pretty much the same. So it's going to be listening to whatever is that you, or whatever scale that you're just using. And again, it's just a very cool feature that you get. So since the chord is stored in memory, it's going to be there, and you know that you're in chord mode when this button is flashing. When this is flashing, it means that you have a chord right there. You're standing on the chord mode. Now, this doesn't mean that you just cannot, get out of the chord mode. So if I do shift and I do tap the tie and the rest, it's going to get out of the chord mode. Now, this doesn't mean that it's going to delete your chord. If I go shift and I do the same thing, it's going to start blinking. And notice that it's blinking because we had a chord in memory. It will not delete the chord from memory if we get out of the chord mode. That's, the trick right here. And if I go back, we still get it. So if we do the same process and we record a new chord, it's going to, of course, replace the previous one. Okay, since now we know how to create sequences, use the user scales and the scales, chords, and so on, now we're going to focus on the tools that we have available to edit sequences. And the main thing is going to be the step shift functions that are labeled below the steps. So all of these functions that we have right here is just things that we can use. And we already know the first two, it's going to be the pattern and the clear steps. We already know those ones. We've been using it, but then you have all the other ones. So you have nudge to the left and then nudge to the right. We're going to talk about this ones first. So I'm going to be maybe adding a drum sequence. I'm maybe going to be adding 4 in the floor, something simple. And then I'm going to be adding some snares, something simple. I'm going to be adding some hats. So I'm going to be adding hats right there, something very simple. Right? Again, super simple. Now what we can do, we can nudge to the left or nudge to the right. And I'm standing on the hats track. So by holding the shift, and again, all of these are called shift functions. I'm going to be holding the shift. Now, when we do so, we can press the nudge to the left or nudge to the right. And this will move whatever steps that you have right here to the left or to the right. I can go to the right, and it's just going to nudge the hats. And not everything else. Everything else stays the same. I can keep going, and it's just going to keep nudging and nudging and nudging. We can go forwards or we can go backwards. Right. Again, just a pretty useful and cool feature. And now we can do this, of course, with melodic tracks. If I maybe gonna stand the hats on a, normal position, I'm gonna be just doing step recording or live recording, doesn't matter. You know what? Doesn't sound that bad. I can do shift, and I can go to the nudge, and I'm gonna move them. And just by doing this, we can just try different variations. And this is the whole point of the functions that we have right here. We just can nudge and just see how it sounds. It's super cool. So the next shift function is going to be invert. So this will take whatever you have on your sequence and it will just invert it. So let me just record something, and I'm going to be maybe doing some step recording, and I'm going to do this chromatically. And I'm going to be maybe recording I'm going to make the last step 32s. So we're going to be recording a lot of notes. Maybe I'm going to need more notes. Right, so we have 32s. It's going to sound like crap, but this is what we have. So what happens if we invert it? Now it will invert the whole pattern, and these are pattern functions, not just pages functions. So if I do shift, I'm gonna get out of the rec. It doesn't matter, but I'm gonna go and invert, and now when I play it back, it's going to invert it. Alright, I'm gonna do it again, and again it's going from low to high. And if I invert it, it's going to start from high to low. It's going to take whatever you recorded and just invert it. Pretty simple. But remember that all of this is for the whole pattern. If you have 4 pages of this, all the shift functions are going to be working on all the pages. So the next ones are going to be the semi-down and the semi-up. And again, this is how it sounds. And the only thing that this does is going to move it one semitone up or down, or half step up or down. And I'm going to be holding the shift, And I'm going to be going to semitone. Notice that it's one semitone down. We can go further, or we can go up. And it's just, again, just going to move everything and transpose it to one semitone up or down. Now, the next ones are going to be the octave down and the octave up. I'm going to hold the shift, holding the shift, and I can just shift everything one octave down, 2 octaves, and then we can just go octave up. All right, so coming up are the quantize, the QNT 50% and the QNT 100%. And all of this is just for quantizing. So let's say that you record something live that it's not quantized and you want to quantize it. Well, you have the shift functions right here. So I'm going to do some live recording. And remember, the quantize is off. I'm going to be trying to record it in time. Didn't do a good, this still is on this step. Still, it sounds a little bit off. So you can quantize it with the quantize 50%. If I do shift right here, I can go to quantize 50% and it's going to do 50%, or it's going to attempt, it's not going to quantize it fully. It's going to do 50% of it. It's kind of a, making it playing on the grid, in the grid. But still, if I go to quantize 100%, it's going to just adjust whatever I did. And it's like recording with quantize on. Okay, so coming up next is the random order, random nodes, and then the random octave. These ones are pretty simple. Maybe I'm going to get out of the drum. I'm going to mute it. And I'm just going to go to a melodic track. All right, so I'm going to be doing some recording. I'm going to record something. Same way we did before, just, if I play it back, we have it. So the first one, it's going to be random order, right? So this, what we'll do, it will randomize whatever it is that you did, but it's going to, keep the fundamental notes, right? So all of this is just to create variations, just using what you have. All right. So if I'm going to be doing shift, and I'm going to be going to the random order. Notice it sounds a little bit different. So you record your fundamental notes, and then it's just gonna shift them around to create a variation of whatever it is that you did. It's just a different order. If I do it again, I'm just gonna do it again. Let's do it again. And just like this, you just keep tapping until you just you get something that you like. So I'm gonna delete this and I'm gonna record something new, and I'm gonna do something like that, right? And maybe like that. So if I play it, it's pretty dull. Now the next one is gonna be random notes. I'm gonna be doing shift and I'm gonna be going to random notes. As soon as I do this, it's going to be playing random notes. Now all of this can live, or you can do it within the spectrum of your scale. So if I go to a minor, select the minor, and then I go to a root and select the root, maybe I'm gonna be selecting a D. It's just gonna respect it, but still, it's just very random. This is how it works. Maybe I'm gonna be selecting a root of C. Alright, so I'm gonna be recording a new one. And I'm going to do something simple. And all of these functions are functions that you learn by example. The next one is going to be the random octave. If I do shift and I do random octave, it's going to keep the same notes, the same pitch, but it will just randomize octaves, right? Sometimes it's going to be a random up, or one octave up or down. And we just keep doing random octave until we get something that we want or we like. Right, it's a little bit different from all the different modes. The random ones are just, a little bit different. So when you save a project, and we are going to be talking about projects in a minute, whatever you save, it's going to save the tempo that you are just pretty much using. So when you go to shift, notice that this was off and this one is blue. This means that this one is on. So if I press it and it's blue, it means that the global BPM, it's going to be on. right? So it's just using the global BPM. Now, the main difference with this is that whenever you save a project, it's going to save it with whatever tempo that you're using right there. So when this is off, it means when you save the pattern and you save it in a project and everything else, it's going to remember the tempo that you were using. Now, when you turn this on, and you do shift and you turn it on and it's blue, it means that it's on. So it's going to use a global tempo that you can change from the MIDI control center. Now, still, when you save a project with the original tempo, it's going to remember the original tempo. This is like enabling or disabling, but it's not erasing or changing the tempo. All right, so the next one up is going to be the wait to load. Now, right now, it's going to be, and this the last one, it's going to be on blue. It means that it's on. So the wait to load, it's when we cue different patterns. And maybe I'm going to need to create a pattern just to show you this. So I'm going to be going to, I don't know, the pattern number 1 of the track number 1. I'm going to be doing something like this. Something simple, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be playing this, and it's just one single key. All right, so let's say that on the next pattern, the pattern number 2, if I go to the number 1, we still have it. If I go to the number 2, I'm going to be doing the same thing, but I'm going to be doing a higher key, something like that. Right, so if I play it, it's going to be that. Now, when I go to the number 1, notice that it's blinking first. And it's because the wait to load, it's on, and it's waiting for the whole sequence to be done playing before queuing to the next step. I'm going to make it more obvious. I'm going to go to the last step and, well, actually here. And I'm going to make it more obvious. I'm going to stand the number 1, and I'm going to be making it 64 steps long, right? Super long. So when I play back this and I want to cue it to the number 2. So I cue it, and it's gonna wait for a long time because the whole sequence needs to be done before going to the next pattern. And that's how the wait to load, and the name makes sense, it works. Now, if I disable this, which means it's not blue, now it's off, it means that I can cue it whenever I want. If I play this from the beginning, I'm going to be going to 2, and it will instantly go to the next pattern. So it's not awaiting to cue it to the next, or to whatever pattern that you want to use. Right, so let's finally talk about the 5 encoders that we have right here. You know, we have 5 of the pitch, gate, velocity, time shift, randomness. We already covered them just a little bit, you know, throughout the different sections of this guide. And they are just very simple to understand. Each step, or whatever note that you add right here, we're going to talk about that in a minute. We can control the pitch, gate, velocity, and we can change the params with the knobs. So I'm going to be live recording some notes. I'm going to be doing something like that. And, you know, this goes just like this. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be doing something like that and just record different parts. Right. It's just gonna live record. And I'm doing live record because this is going to detect the velocity and everything that you're doing. Now, the thing is that the encoders will hold the information for each note in each step. So if I go here and I press and hold, you know, we are doing the quick edit, it's going to tell you which notes you played. In this case, it's just, you know, this one. And it's going to tell you the pitch, it's going to tell you the gate, the velocity you pressed it, the time shift. The time shift is the offset, if you're playing right in the grid or not, and then the randomness. We're going to talk about this in a minute. But the thing is that right here, you can just change the pitch to something else. You can modify it with these knobs. So right here, we have the pitch. I can just move it down and edit whatever we have inside that step. Maybe I can make the gate longer. So this is going to make the gate longer. It's going to make that note just, you know, play longer. We're going to talk again more about this because there's something really weird. I want to say really weird, but it's very specific when we work in mono or polyphonic. We're going to talk about that. And then we have well, for now, it's going to make it, you know, really short. So then you have the velocity. You can go to whatever step and just edit the velocity just like that. Now then the time shift is going to be the offsetting if I want to offset this step to the right or to the left. And right there, you know, we can see it with the lights right here. And now the randomness is going to be how likely this step will play. If I play it, it's just going to sound like this. So all the steps, when you record something, unless you change this randomness value, is going to be 100%. So it means that each step will play. Now, if I hold this, the randomness is going to be 100%. Now I can make it less, like 50 or less than 50, and is how likely this step will play. So when the sequencer reaches this step, it's gonna kind of throw a dice or a coin, and it's gonna say, okay, so it has a 50% chance to play or not. So if I play it, sometimes they will play, or sometimes they will not play. All of this depends on the randomness. So 100% it will always play, right? So sometimes they're playing, sometimes they're not playing. If I make it less than 50%, like 20% or something like that, most likely they will not play because it's just 20%, right? So when I go to the step and I'm going to be touching the, the knobs, I'm going to be just touching maybe the gate. It's going to let you know right there the pitch, the note selected, and the gate, it lets you know the pitch. Then if you want to know the velocity right there, it's going to, let you know the velocity. The time shift, if I touch the time shift, the shift, is going to let you know how much shifting you're doing to the right or to the side, or to the left. And then it's going to be the random. If I just, I'm tapping like this. So if I go to the random, it's just going to let you know how much random you are doing. So again, this one works like the KEYSTEP Pro, for example. You can do something like this. You just tap the encoders and it will let you know what are the values on the screen. Because, it sometimes is a little bit different, a little bit difficult to know what you're doing just with the lights. All right, so starting from the beginning, I need to talk about the gate, and it works differently if you're standing on poly or you're standing on mono. So I'm going to be showing you a couple of examples. So I'm standing on poly, not on mono. For now, I'm just going to go to mono. So the gate can control the ties, but also the length, depending on, what you're using. And this is why it's a little bit confusing, because it's poly and mono. So we are standing in mono. I'm going to be adding 4 different steps, and I'm going to be doing some playing. So on a standard, monophonic sequencer, what you can do, you can tie notes if you're playing the same one. This one will be tied to this one, and if we tie this to this, it's going to be playing for 3 steps, the same note. So to do it here, especially in mono, we need to, in the quick edit, tap this, then hold the note that you want to tie, and then tap it, and it's going to tie it. If you want to tie this to the 2 to the 3, well, we'll do the same thing, just going to be holding and just pressing the tie. And same thing right here, I'm going to hold the note and press the tie. So now if I play it, it's going to be one single note, but we are tying the notes. And this is how it would work, how it works on a normal standard mono sequencer. Now, if I do the same without holding the note, what it does is going to add a rest. So that is just, it will not play. It is still, right there behind the scenes, but, it's just kind of a, removing it. So it's just not the same way. Now, there's an easier way of doing this. I'm going to show you in a second. Now, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go there, make sure I'm standing in mono, and I'm going to be extending this with the gates. So I'm going to be going up, and I'm going to make it 50%, and it's going to be really long. Now, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to be adding a note maybe right here. So notice what happens. This one is going to be playing, it has a very long gate, but then I'm adding a step right here and the same note. And remember, we are working with mono. So this one will choke the gate length of this one. If I want to keep extending this, I'm going to need to go to this step and just make it longer. But now we are just playing 2 steps, 2 notes, and there we are just, making the gate longer. It's just not the same thing. Now, this works like this because we are playing the same note and we are standing in mono. So we can only play one single key at a time. If I add a different key, let's say that I want to add that key, it's going to work a little bit different, but still choking this one. If I make the gate longer, this is going to be longer. But again, we are in mono. It's one key at a time. Now, when we work in poly, let me just stop it. I'm going to delete everything. And we are standing in poly right now. When we work in poly, it's going to be a little bit different because each note has its own gate. So if I record something, I'm going to be making a chord right here. I'm going to be holding this. I'm going to make the gate longer for this. And I'm going to really make it long. I'm going to be playing. Notice that the note is really long. If I hold it right here, you have a long gate. So what happens if I add a new note right here and I make the gate longer? Now we're working in polyphonic, so the notes, if you're playing different notes, will not choke the previous ones. I'm going to be going here and just going to be adding 1 octave higher, just like this, and gonna make the gate, I don't know, something like that. And if I play it, that's what happens. The 3 chords that we have right here on the step 1 are really long, and this one it's playing, but it's not choking this ones. So this is how it works in Poly. The fact that you change the gate doesn't mean that it's going to be choking the previous one. You really need to be aware of this, because if you want to get that kind of a classic type of sequence where you can just extend or tie the notes, tie the steps, and choke the previous ones, well, if you're working in Poly, you're not going to be able to do it if you're playing the same notes. So you need to change it to mono. Now in Poly, it will only choke, and let me see, we have a C right here. It will only choke it if we are playing the same notes. Now what happens now, that is what happens. So we have a chord, and it's going to be these 3 keys. Since on this step we are just choking the C, the other ones still go, because the length, the gate of the other ones, of this ones, this ones, it's much longer. So just by this, you can just offset the duration of different notes within the same sequence. Just a fantastic thing. Still, you need to do the work, you need to go step by step and just edit the gates for the different keys and the different steps. Okay, so that's the, going to start over. That's the gate. You need to really be aware if you're standing on mono, poly, and if you're playing chords and how much gate you're doing. You just need to, do the work. Now, the other thing I want to mention is going to be the offset. So I know I can add some, some notes, just random notes, whatever, it doesn't matter. And if I play it, it's just going to be playing this. If I go to this one, I can offset with the time shift. And I can just do the same for all. And we are just offsetting the notes individually. Right? Something like that. So they have, different values. So if you hold the shift, you can do adjust the offsets, the time shift, globally. So it's going to offset the whole sequence in a global fashion. And right here on the screen, it's telling you how much into negatives or positives you are doing it. Now you're affecting, while you're holding shift, all the different steps. So it's not like it's changing it's all the different steps to a fixed value. It's just taking whatever values you had from before and just offsetting everything plus plus 20 or minus 3 and so on and so on. So this is, again, how it works. You can affect it globally. It's not a fixed value. You're just offsetting from the existing values. Okay, so we know that we can use the quick edit to make, fast changes to the sequence, but we have something a lot more dedicated, which is going to be the step edit, this button that we have right here. So I'm going to be just recording something simple. I'm just going to do rec and do step recording. It doesn't matter. Just going to do whatever. Okay, so we have something like that. Pretty simple. Now we know that we can hold that, and while we're holding is going to let us know what we are doing, and we can just change it to something else. And also we can change the pitch if we wanted to by holding this step and going all the way down and so on, and change the gate and everything, everything else that we've been doing throughout the whole video. Now the difference with the step edit mode is that we can affect all of this edit a little bit better. So when you're standing on a step edit, it lets you stand on a step without you having, to hold the step, which really sucks. And by tapping it, it's going to let you audition whatever it is that you are doing without modifying or turning off that step, which is, again, something really, really useful. Now, some things that you need to know, for example, if I'm standing on this one, we only have one single note. And notice that the overdub is off. If I play a new note, it's going to change it to that note. Now, when I do so, I can go to that note, change the pitch, change the gate, change the velocity. We just can do whatever we want right here. But what happens if we have a chord, right? What happens if we do this? Now, I can still hold it. And when we hold it, notice what happens is removing all the other notes. It's just standing on this one. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to record the chord. I want to press this one and edit just this note. as soon as I do so, it's removing the other ones and keeping this one. So how can we edit individual notes within the same steps or step? So we need to use the overdub. Now, when we go to overdub and we are standing in step edit, it's on, and overdub it's on, notice that the lights are steady. So when we modify them, this means the steady lights that we are going to be adjusting pretty much the whole damn thing, all the different notes. But in overdub, if you tap one of the notes, notice that the other ones go dim and this one goes brighter. So now we are just going to be editing that note individually, and we can do gauge, velocity, and time shift, and everything else that we've been doing. So we can edit notes, individual notes within the same step, which is, again, something really, really cool. So let's say I want to make this one a C, this one, I'm going to be selecting it, I'm going to change the gate on this one and the velocity. Maybe on this one, I'm going to be changing the pitch to a 7th, and so on and so on. Now, you can select the multiple keys at the same time. So let's say I select this, the C and the 7th, and I can just shift them both. So it's just a fantastic little thing, right? Okay, so I'm going to start over, and I'm just going to be maybe adding I'm going to add one single chord. If I play it, we have it. And we kind of already talked about this. If I go to edit mode, notice that we are standing on there, and what I'm going to be doing now, I'm going to be holding the notes that we want to edit, and we can do this on a quick edit mode. And I'm going to be doing tie rest, and it's going to advance to the steps, right? So this means that we are making the gate of whatever we are holding longer. If I stop everything and play it, notice that the gate is very long. Right, so we kind of already know this because we can do this with the quick edit mode. Now, what happens if we can do this because the overdub is not on. So if I go and stand on that node, and notice that we can hear the whole length of the step, and overdub is not on, I'm not holding the keys, I'm going to be doing tie rest. So this will just remove whatever data that you have right here. Notice that it's just completely off. If I just, record something right here, maybe something like that, it doesn't matter. Right, so it's going to be something like that. So if I, again, stand right here, don't have the overdub is off, I'm going to be playing the tie and rest. It's going to advance to the next step, but it's just wiping whatever data you have right there. And it's a little bit confusing, with the overdub on and not on. We are extending or adding a rest or deleting. It's just a little bit confusing. You just need to be aware of what you're doing and when it's going on, when overdub is on and off, and when you do tie and rest, if this one is off and on. And I know it's just a little bit confusing, but it's just the way it works. Okay, I'm going to start over, and on this case, I'm going to be going to the drum mode. So on this one, we have a kick and snare. I'm going to be standing on the kick. I'm going to do a 4 in the floor, and I'm going to show you something really cool. I'm going to go to a snare and add a snare right there. And I'm going to go to the hats and just add some hats on the sequence. Okay, so that's it. We have some hats, and I'm going to be using the hats. So what I want to do the step skip. It could be called skip step, but step skip is, well, how it calls within the Arturia or this device. So I can hold this step, and notice what happens. When I hold it, the lights right here, they go on. And we only have a 16-step sequence. We don't have 64. Why do they go on? Now, when we play this is going to be playing in a loop. So we can decide if this step is going to be playing on the first loop and not playing on the second one and the third one and the fourth one. So let me just give you an example. We know now that when I hold this is on pretty much the whole thing. So the first 4 loops, this hat will always play. But what I can do, I can say I don't want it to play on the second loop, and I don't want it to play on the 4th loop. So if I start over, this hat will play on the first, it will not play, it will play on the 3rd, and it will not play on the 4th loop. There you go, and the whole thing starts over. Right? So just by doing this, we can add variations to pretty much whatever we want. Maybe this one is not going to be playing on the last. This one plays just in the 2nd and the 4th loop, and this one just plays on the 1st and the 3rd. So this is a nice way to add a little bit more variation to whatever steps that you have enabled for, for this sequence in this case, right? All right, so I'm going to be wiping everything and I'm going to be going to the melodic sequence and I'm just going to be recording one single chord, right? So we have one single tiny chord. Can I copy the whole chord and paste it on different parts? Or maybe you could just copy parts of the chord and paste it within the same step. Yeah, we can do it. We need to enable the step edit and this will just, let us do it. And we can do it with the copy, the paste, and then we can erase part of the notes. I'm going to be doing copy and I'm holding the copy and I'm going to be selecting this note and I'm going to be selecting this note. And notice they go blue. So it means that we just copied all of this. Now I'm going to be holding the paste and I'm going to be pasting them right here at the bottom. And it's just going and pasting them. All right, so how simple is that? Now, what if we want to delete notes? Well, right here we have the erase. So I can just hold the erase and just delete notes just like that. I'm deleting those ones. All right, so I'm going to start over and I'm going to be recording something new and maybe add a few more notes. So we have something like that. So I want to do the same thing, right? But I want to copy parts and paste it on the next step. So it's just the same process. I just need to hold the copy and select the notes that I want to copy. Maybe you don't want to copy them all, right? So once you release is in the memory. So I'm going to go to the number 2. I'm going to be holding the paste and then I'm going to be pasting it right there. And there you go. Okay, so let's talk about the tempo, the fine-tuning, and the swing and the offset. Something that is super simple. I left this section for the end of the video because it's just a very simple thing to understand, and I'm assuming that you kind of already know this. So, but still, since this is a deep dive, I just need to show you how this works. So right here you have your tempo, so you can change the tempo of your project. And again, I know all this is super obvious. Now, what we can do, we can go by ones in terms of BPM. Now what we can do shift and move the tempo, and instead of doing BPMs, you can be doing fine tuning. So instead of going to units, you just can go the change, the in-betweens between the BPMs. Something really simple. Now, of course, all this depends on what you're doing and how you like to work with your tempo. Now, then you have the swing and then the offset. And why it's swing and offset? It's pretty much the same thing. The only difference is that swing is going to be a global swing. So it's going to do swing for all the four tracks. And the offset is for the individual tracks. So if I go to maybe the drum and I create a tiny little sequence super fast, I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to go to the snare and then do the snare, and I'm gonna go to the hats, and that hats all over the place, just something like this. Now, if I go up in the swing on this one, and I keep going up, it will tell you right there how much swing you're doing. Now, the swing, it's global, right? So you can hear it on the hats. And going down in swing, we just remove the swing. Now, if I do the same thing on this one, maybe I'm gonna be adding some notes, the same notes, it doesn't matter. And I go up in swing, we can hear that it's reacting on the hats on this track and this track as well. Now, if I go down, I'm gonna stop it and show you what you see right here. So now if I move, I'm standing on the track number 4. If I move the swing, notice it says global and it gives you the track number 4 offset. And both are going up or going down. It's because we are doing it globally. Now I'm standing on the track number 4. If I do shift and move the offset, the swing is going to do swing, but just for the track number 4. That's why it's called offset. So if let me just do it this way. I'm going to hold the shift and move it. And notice that the track number 4 swing is going all the way up to 75, but the global stays down in 50. So if I play it, we only get swing on the track number 4. Now it says offset. If I tap it, it says offset because we might have a global amount of swing, and when we do shift, this is going to be offsetting from the global amount of swing that we have right here, right? So again, it works, it makes sense. If you have a global amount of something, right, which is going to be your total, then if you add or remove to that global, that's going to be an offset. You're just offsetting from the global amount of swing that you just selected for that much when you do shift and, and you move this encoder. This is why it's called offset. And it is that if I offset or move the global, the track number 4 is offsetting because we have different values. And just by doing this, you can, again, add different swings to all the different tracks. And then if you want to move them, and that's the phone. So if you move it now, if you move the global without doing shift, and you do have some different swings on all the different tracks, you're just going to be moving them around and offsetting them all together. That's why you get the global, the swing and the offset. All right, so let's talk about polyrhythms. I'm starting from a default patch. So now with the polyrhythms, what we can do is something that we get for the drum sequence, and I'm standing on the drum right now. So what we can do, we can offset the length, the pattern length for the different parts individually. Now the thing is that by default, when you start a new pattern and you stand on the drum, the whole sequence is going to be mono. So if I'm just doing something, I'm going to be doing a 4 in the floor and the kick. So we can have something to work with. And then we have the snare. And then again, we're going to do some hats. I'm not doing something super, very specific. So we know that we can extend the sequence. Now, when I extend it by doing shift and then maybe doing the last step and maybe doing this, it's going to extend the whole sequence, but it's just copying, and it's the same for all the different tracks. The same for the kick, the same for the snare, and the same for the hi-hats. And it's because when we extend it, it's going to extend everything because the drums are mono in terms of polyrhythms, of course. So if you take a look at right here, and for now I'm just going to start with the default pattern. So again, we have nothing. If I do shift and I'm standing on the drum, I do shift. Notice that the sequence is going to say mono. And this is something you get by default on the drum. If I go to the track number 4 and I do shift, by default, it's poly. All right. So I'm going to be going to the drum and I'm going to be changing from mono to poly. So now we are enabling polyrhythms on the drum track. Right, so since now we know that the sequence is poly, I'm going to be doing something simple. I'm going to be doing a 4 in the floor, just like that. I'm going to go to the snare, and we have a kick in the snare. Now the hats, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be doing this. So we have something simple. Now, the trick with the polyrhythms is that now each part of the drum kit can have its own length, duration, or the last step. So for example, we are standing on the hats. I'm going to be going to the last step. And now it's 16. I can make it a 3-step long. And notice how this changes the whole thing. I can maybe make it 5. And we are just starting to get, different rhythms because each individual part of the drum kit is, working on a different fashion in terms of the steps. Now I can still, I can stop it. I'm going to make it 16 steps long. And we get the same thing. So one thing that we can do is maybe extend the length of the hat pattern. And notice that the kick stays on 16, the snare stays on 16, but the hat is going to be 64 steps long. So maybe on the second page, we can just make some variations just like that. And maybe on the 64, we can just do something like this. And we can introduce a lot more, color and variation to whatever it is that we are doing in terms of pattern. And okay, so, that's polyrhythms. So this is something that you get pretty much on all sequencers, all modern sequencers. And it's simple as that. You choose whatever track and you just offset and then make variations to that sequence for that instrument. Okay, so I'm going to be doing some playing, and we have whatever it is that we are doing right now with the drums. So I want to talk about the looper. Now the looper, what it will do, it will just make the sequence loop a certain amount of times. That is what is going on right now. So by default, the looper is going to be on. You can turn it off or just to turn it on by doing shift and tapping the looper. And notice that right here, it's telling you the touch strip is on or off for the looper. So I'm going to, leave it on. So what this does, and I'm going to adjust whatever it is that we are doing. Maybe I'm going to go up in tempo, so it's just a little bit more fun. Maybe gonna go to 125s. So I'm gonna be playing this. So what this does, when we play it, when we press it, is going to, and for now I'm just gonna be maybe going to the kick, because we have 16 steps long. I'm gonna be doing the 1/4. So what this does, whenever you are on the timeline and you press the looper, it's just gonna loop this 4 steps. And it's because the time division is 1/16. So if we do 1/4, it's just gonna do 4. Then 1/8 is just gonna be 2 steps. Then if you have 16, I'm gonna be looping 1 single step. And if I do 30 seconds, well, it's just the same as 16. So the time division that you're using on your sequence really matters. If I do 132s, now 116 is going to be 2. Then if I do 8, it's just going to be 4. And if I do 4, it's going to be 8 steps. So the time division, again, really matters when you use the looper. Now, one more thing that you need to learn is that when you're looping this section, in this case, I'm looping right here, I can just tap right here and it's going to start looping from here. And I'm still holding this, right? So maybe if I tap it there, it's going to start from there and so on and so on and so on. Right. So pretty simple, right? So this is just a nice tiny feature that we get with this device. Okay, so now we are entering into the final part of this guide. Now we need to talk about projects, chains, and scenes. Something that is very basic, but first, I wanted to cover how to create sequences. And now we know how to do all this. We know how to use the encoders, how to do the shift functions for the patterns, how to use the scales, the time divisions, the ARP, the drum, the doing hold, ties, and pretty much everything. So now we need to learn how to store projects and how we can chain different patterns within the same project. So when you work on this device, you're working in projects. So if you start it right from the beginning, right, you open it, you unbox it, and you get it from factory, by default, you're standing in project number 1. And when you go to this button and you press it, it's going to say project number 1. And right here, lights in blue, the project number where you're standing. So you can store up to 16 projects, right? And each 16 projects will have its own version of the 4 different tracks and the 16 patterns per track. So on maybe your project number 1, you might have a completely, a whole performance, and then you just maybe go and load the project number 2, and you have again, just a completely different song. So for now, I'm just gonna go to project number 1. So when you store something on a project, so when you are just working, let's say that you have something right here, like the drum sequence I have right here, and you store the project, you're going to be saving everything that you did, the swing, the scenes, chains, everything that you did on the tracks, and pretty much everything. You save everything within that project. Now, if you start changing projects and you never saved it, or maybe you just turn it off and you turn it back on, you're going to lose everything that you did if you never saved it. So this is why it's super important for you to save the project. So we are standing on the project number 1, and I want to save this project, with this drum kit. So right here you have your save. So the way to save a project is going to be holding the save, and then you need to do project. And it's going to ask you, do you want to save the project number 1? And to confirm, you just need to push the encoder, or you need to do exit if you don't want to save it. So when you do push, it's going to wait, and then project saved. So now if you turn it off and you turn it back on, you're going to be recalling everything that you did right here. So what if you want to start a new project? Well, it's pretty simple. You go to project and you just go to project number 2, and that's going to be a completely empty project. But the cool thing again is that we can go back to project number 1 and still have what we did, all the work we did on that project. Now, another way you have to change projects, because when we are playing back and we change projects, this is just gonna be kind of a changing to the other project right away. So what you can do, you can hold the project, and with the encoder, you can just maybe select, the project number 3. When you're done, you just push to confirm, and only then it's going to be changing to the other project. This is just, another way of doing this. And if I go back to number 1, we just get it. Now you have an alternate. Now you have something called load from flash. If you hold the project and then do shift, it's going to say load project from flash, and then it says load project 1, of course, from flash. So what this, you get this, so you can make changes to your pattern, and then at some point you can restore the saved version. And for this, you need to have a saved version. So the main idea of loading from a flash is that you can make changes to your sequences. Maybe I'm going to be doing something like that and something, something really obvious. Let's say that we are working live on a performance and we are just making a lot of changes to whatever we have right here. So we have something new. Now, this version of the project of the pattern, of all the patterns, we never saved it to the memory. So when we load from flash, we are restoring the good saved version. So this means that we can just make variations to whatever we want, just play around, make some changes, and it will just never affect the saved project. Right? And always, if you want to go back while you're playing back, you load from flash and it will go back to the saved version. Alright, so I'm standing on the project number 1, and since we can save projects, we can erase projects. So again, we are standing on the number 1. I'm going to be going to erase, and when I go to erase, I'm going to do project, and it's going to say erase project number 1. If I release it and push the encoder, it's going to ask you, are you sure? And then to exit, to cancel the operation, or just push the encoder to delete the project. Now, if I play it back, I have nothing. And again, we are standing on the project number 1. So always, again, remember that you need to really be sure that you want to delete your project. Now, what happens if you want to copy a project? So I'm going to maybe go to drum, and I'm going to be doing something silly, something like that. Maybe something, so you can know that we have something. It doesn't matter. There we go. So we have something like that, something dumb, right? So I want to copy this project. So first I'm going to be saving this. I'm going to be going to save and then project. I'm going to confirm this. So now we have a saved project on the number 1. If you play it back, it's going to be absurd, but that's fine. So what happens if I want to copy a project, this one, the number 1, and paste it to the number 2? Well, everything is with the copy and paste buttons that we have right here. So I'm going to be doing copy, hold it, and then copy the project. And it's going to ask you, you want to copy and paste the number 1, but where are you going to be pasting it? You're going to be pasting it on the number 2, the number 4, the number 5. Well, I want to copy the number 1 because we are standing there, and I'm going to be pasting it on the number 2. Are you sure? Yes, we are sure. And if we go to projects, we can see, if I go to the number 2 and play it back, we can see that we have the same thing we had on the project number 1. So that's, the way you copy paste projects. Right, so on this device, we can do chains and we can do scenes, and we have the buttons for here, for that right here. We have chain and we have scenes. So creating chains is very simple, and it's, again, something that we have on pretty much all sequencers. So first I'm going to go to chains, and then we're going to talk about scenes. So when you go to the chain, I'm going to be holding the chain, and now what you need to do, and you're going to see it on the screen. Now, I'm not going to show you the screen, but I'm going to be showing you right here. So now we need to tap the order of the patterns that we want to play. So if, let's say that I want to play the number 1, then I want the number 3 one time, then the number 3 twice, then I want to go to the number 2, I want to go to the number 4, and then I want to go maybe to the number 5 again, right? So this is going to be the order. Now, if you want to know the chain, when you press and hold the chain, it's going to let you know what you did. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 4, 5, and then it starts over pretty much. So that's going to be the chain. Now, when we play back, if we are standing on the chain and we have a chain, I'm going to be playing back, and this is going to, of course, just play back whatever chain that we created. It's going to be one of the 2, then it's going to go to the number 4, and then the number 5, and then the whole thing starts over. Always remember that when you are stopped, you can hold the chain and it will just, let you know the chain that you created. One thing that you need to be aware of is that when you're playing back, and I'm playing back right now, if you want to get out of the chain, the only thing you need to do is you need to go to the pattern, to the pattern mode. When you go to the pattern mode, it's going to exit the chain, and it's going to just play whatever pattern that was playing at that time. So this is something that you need to be aware of. I'm going to be going back to the chain, and I'm going to start playback again. It's going to be the 1, then it's going to go to the 3, the 2, the 4, and then the 5, right? We know this. That's the chain. So if I want to get out, I want to get out on the 1, so I need to wait for the 1 to be on display. So if when the 1 is on display, I'm going to be playing pattern number 1, and then it's going to be staying on pattern number 1. So this is, how the chain works. So another thing that you can do, I'm going to go to chains, and I'm going to be playing it back. So when we are playing back the chain, the arrows can help. So I want to get out of the chain, but I want to maybe go to the previous pattern or the next pattern that this one is playing. So if I'm playing standing on the number 3 or the number 4 and so on, by doing the left or the right is going to be changing. So if I change it, we are standing on the 2 and I go back to the number 1, it's going to stay on the number 1. It's going to get out of the chain mode and go back to the pattern mode. Let's do it again. I'm going to go to chain. I'm going to be playing it. It's going to go number 3. When it hits the number 2, I'm going to do back. So I can go to the number 1 and it stays on the number 1. So this is a different way of disabling the chain and going back to the pattern mode. All right, so that's it. That's the chains. Is a pretty simple thing. Now, can you store chains? Yes, when you save the project, you save the chain. Now, can you delete chains? No, you cannot. There is no information about that in the manual. There's no information about that in the web. So there's no there's no way of kind of deleting a chain. If I again go back to chain, it's showing me that chain is just right there. So the only way to disable the chain, you can go back to chain and just, tap a new chain and maybe tap the number 1 and it will always play the number 1. So it just works. That's the way it works. Whenever you enter a new chain, it will always start from whatever chain or whatever pattern that you're selecting. Now, if the chain starts on number 2, it's going to be starting on the number 2, but that's the only chain. So if you press the chain again, just like this, release and play it again, it's doing just the pattern number 1. And if I play it back, even though it's standing in chain, it will only play the pattern number 1. So, it's pretty much the same thing. So it's kind of a workaround to the chains. You don't have a delete chain function, but if you want to remove or delete whatever chain you created, just go to chain and do number 1 and that's it. Okay, so now we need to talk about scenes. Now, scenes, what it does, and this is the button, this scenes, and this is what it will do. It will save the state of whatever you have right here, whatever you have on your sequencers and your tracks, so you can quickly change to different versions of whatever configuration you have right here. Now, this is one of the things that you learn by example. Okay, so if you hold the scene right here, it's just like, selecting a pattern or selecting a project. If I hold the scene, it's telling me that I'm standing on the scene number 1, and you can store up to 16 scenes with different, configurations. So, okay, so I'm going to be starting from the beginning with pretty much everything. I have no information on this pattern, and I'm working on the project number 1, right? So okay, so I'm going to be standing on the track number 1. I'm going to be working with the pattern number 1. The track number 2 is going to be using the track number 2, the pattern number 2, and then this one is going to be doing the 3, and this one is going to be doing the 4. And I'm doing this so it can be, really obvious. So when I play whatever it is that we are doing right here, I want to save it and store it and recall it much later because I want to be changing the patterns, to different configurations, different versions of this track. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm doing something obvious so we can really see the change. So when I play it back, this is going to be playing the pattern number 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4 on, all the different tracks. So now what we can do, we can commit this to a scene. And whenever we go back to that scene, it's going to recall whatever it is that we are doing right here and just, play it. Now, for this combination to be stored in memory, we need to save the scene. How can we do it? Well, we need to go to save, and then when we are saving, we need to press the scene, and it's going to ask you, where do you want to save it? So we want to save it on the scene number 1. So now, if I, go to do some playback, it's just going to be playing the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. Pretty simple. Now, what happens if I go to scene and change the scene? I'm going to go to the scene number 2. Now, if I go to the number 1, it's recalling and, remembering the order of the patterns. So this is, the main purpose of scenes. So now, again, I can go to the scene number 2. And on this one, I can, do something different. Maybe I'm going to be playing the pattern number 3. On this one is going to be the 1. This one is going to be maybe the 5, but it's going to be muted. And this one is going to be, I don't know, the pattern number 7. Doesn't matter. So now we are standing on the scene number 2, and I'm going to be going save and then scene, and I want to save it on the number 2. All right, and I'm going to do exit for now. So now we are standing on the number 2. If I change it to the number 1, is the 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I change it to the scene number 2, it's going to be, playing a different configuration, and it's even remembering the mutes. And the main point of all of this is that when you're performing, you're just playing it, you're just playing this configuration, and you can quickly change to, a different version of whatever it is that you're doing on this project. Now, it can even remember chains. I'm going to go to the scene number 3. We are standing in the scene number 3. And I'm going to go to the track number 4. And I'm going to go to chains on the number 4. And I'm going to be doing something on the number 4, right? So if I play it back, now this one contains a chain information. So if I save the scene, the scene number 3, I'm going to go to save scene, and I'm going to be saving the scene. And if I play it, it's going to remember the chain, and we are standing on the scene number 3. If I go to the number 1, to the scene number 1, it's doing 1, 2, 3, 4, but notice that the chain, it's not in full effect on the track number 4, right? Because we don't have it enabled. So if I go back to the number 3, it's going to be playing whatever we saved and the chain that we created on that scene. So again, this is the main purpose of the scenes. You can create different versions of whatever you have on this project, and then just quickly change to the different scenes, and you're just gonna get it. Now, what if you want to delete a scene? Let's say I want to delete the number 3. I don't like it. I want to delete it. So same deal. Everything works with copy, paste, erase, and save. I'm going to go to erase. I'm going to do scene, and it's going to ask you which one do you want to delete. I'm going to be deleting the number 3, and it's going to be deleted. If I go to scenes and tap the number 3, I'm going to be playing it. There's nothing. Now, let's say I want to, again, erase. I'm going to be erasing the number 2. I'm going to be erasing that one, and I'm going to be erasing the number 1. If I stand on the 1, we don't need to stand on the number 1, but still, and I'm going to be erasing whatever we have on that scene. So now we just have no scenes. We are able to delete the whole scenes. Now, the one thing that you need to make sure is that how can you save scenes? Well, you save them right now in the local memory. You need to save the project. If you don't save the project, you lose it. Everything that you do right here, chains, scenes, the patterns, everything that you do is stored within the project. If you forget to save the project and you turn off the device, you're gonna lose it. Okay, so that's it for this guide. Now, there's one more thing I didn't cover, a couple things I didn't cover. For example, the outs right here, the drum gates, and the voices. Now, if you want for me to create a guide, just connecting different devices to the gates and, the outs that we have right here, let me know down in the comments. I can create a video about that. Another thing that I didn't cover is the control mode. Just like the KEYSTEP Pro, for example, you can go and enter, stand in the control mode, and you can use the device to send CC messages. So you have a little bit more than that, but you go into something that calls control mode, and you use this MIDI controller as something else. Now, I didn't cover the control mode on this video, on this guide, because it's a very simple thing to use. It's very well explained in the manual. So if you check the manual, it's gonna be there, and it's very well detailed. It's a good manual. And it's because this video is already too long. So still, if you want for me to create a separate video just showing you what the control mode can do and everything that it can do, let me know down in the comments. Okay, so if you liked all of this and you learned something new, remember to like and subscribe. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee just to say thanks, you can go to the links on the description. You have links for PayPal, you have YouTube thanks, and you have Patreon. Maybe you can be a 1-month patron and just, buy me a coffee that way. All right, so see you on the next one.